Nearly 7 out of 10 Gen Z adults are losing sleep over money. Not because they're homeless, not because they're unemployed, but because somewhere along the way, modern life turned money into a 24/7 psychological attack. And the worst part? It happens at night, when everything is quiet, when there's nothing left to distract you. That's when it starts. 69% of Gen Z worry about inflation. 69% worry about making rent. 63% are afraid they'll run out of money before the month is even over. 47% wake up in the middle of the night, not from a nightmare, but from financial dread. And 70% of an entire generation are losing sleep over money. That's not a personal problem. That's a crisis. Part 1. The new normal is financial fear. Here's something nobody really talks about. Gen Z didn't grow up in stability. They grew up watching instability become normal. Think about it. If you were born between 1997 and 2012, your first memory of the adult world was probably the 2008 financial crisis. You were a kid. Maybe you didn't understand all of it, but you felt it in your parents' stress, in conversations that suddenly went quiet when you walked into the room, in the way things just felt different. And just when your generation was supposed to step into adulthood, to get jobs, rent apartments, build something, COVID hit. The economy froze, jobs disappeared overnight, industries collapsed, and the rules of the world that Gen Z had been preparing for suddenly didn't exist anymore. Then came inflation. Grocery bills that quietly doubled, rent prices that made no sense, a housing market that felt less like an opportunity and more like a joke you weren't in on. And through all of it, the message from the world was the same. Work harder, hustle more, figure it out. But here's the truth. For Gen Z, financial stress isn't an event. It's not something that happens and then passes. It's the background noise of adulthood. It's the low hum that never turns off. The weight you carry into every decision. Do I spend this? Do I save this? Is this responsible? Am I falling behind? Other generations had financial stress too. That's real. But they also had moments of breathing room. Moments where the math actually added up. Where a full-time job meant you could actually live on it. For a lot of Gen Z, that breathing room never came. And when your nervous system never gets a chance to exhale, it stays on. It stays alert. It stays anxious. That's not weakness. That's what happens to a human being when the ground never feels solid. Part 2. Social media turned money into a competition. Now here's where it gets worse. Previous generations compared themselves to their neighbors, their coworkers, the family down the street with the slightly nicer car. That was painful enough. But Gen Z? Gen Z compares themselves to the entire internet. Every single day. All day. In real time. You open Instagram and someone your age is in Santorini. You open TikTok and someone 2 years younger than you just bought their first property. You scroll for 30 seconds and you've already seen 3 people your age driving luxury cars, living in penthouses, running passive income businesses from their laptops on the beach. And the algorithm doesn't show you the full picture. It doesn't show you the debt, the parental money, the staged photos, the 7 takes it took to get that effortless shot. It just shows you the highlight reel, on repeat, perfectly curated to make you feel like you're the only one struggling. There's a term for this. It's called relative deprivation. The feeling that you're falling behind, not compared to some objective standard, but compared to what you see around you. And when what you see around you is a constant stream of filtered wealth and curated success, your normal life starts to feel like failure. Someone your age is buying a Rolex. Someone's in Dubai for the third time this year. Someone claims they made $20,000 last month doing something you don't fully understand. And meanwhile, you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., doing mental math about whether you can afford to order food this week. Every scroll is psychological warfare. And the worst part? You can't turn it off. Because the same phone that's making you feel broke at midnight is also the phone your alarm is set on. It's your map, your connection to friends, your work communication tool. The thing causing the anxiety is the same thing you can't put down. And that's not an accident. That's by design. Part 3, the 2 a.m. brain spiral. Let's talk about the thing that actually brought you here. The thing that happens when the lights go off. It's 2:13 a.m. Your body is exhausted. You've been going all day. You should be asleep. But your brain has other plans. It starts quietly, a passing thought about rent, about that bill you forgot to check, about whether your savings account has enough to cover next month, or the month after that, or the one after that. And then it escalates. What if I lose this job? What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick? What if I'm still in this same place 5 years from now? You reach for your phone. You open your banking app. You check your balance, as if it will have changed since the last time you checked it an hour ago. It hasn't changed, but somehow, looking at it still makes you feel worse. This isn't just stress. What's happening to you in those moments has a name. It's called financial hypervigilance. Your brain, after being exposed to ongoing financial uncertainty, starts treating money the way a nervous system treats a physical threat. It scans constantly. It runs worst-case scenarios. It cannot rest because on some level, it has learned that relaxing feels dangerous. Researchers call this doom budgeting, the compulsive, anxious recalculation of finances even when there's nothing new to calculate. You already know the numbers, but the brain keeps running them again, and again, and again. And here's the physiological reality of what that does to you. Chronic financial stress elevates cortisol, your primary stress hormone. And elevated cortisol at night is one of the leading causes of sleep disruption. It fragments your sleep cycles. It keeps you in lighter stages of sleep. It wakes you at 3 a.m. for no visible reason. So you're not just tired the next day because you didn't sleep. You're tired the next day because your brain spent the night fighting an invisible enemy. And then you wake up, go back into the world, and do it all again. That cycle is exhausting in a way that's really hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. But if you know, you know. Part 4, why Gen Z feels broke even when they aren't. Here's something that might sound strange. A lot of Gen Z aren't broke, not technically. They have jobs, some have decent incomes, some are making more money than their parents did at the same age, at least on paper. And yet, they still feel poor. How is that possible? This is one of the most important things to understand about what Gen Z is actually going through, because it's not irrational. There's a real psychological and economic explanation for it. The first part is something called lifestyle inflation. As cities became cultural centers, as making it became synonymous with living in New York or London or Sydney or Toronto, the cost of just existing in those places became enormous. The rent required to live somewhere that offers opportunity often consumes most of a decent salary. So even if the number on your paycheck looks okay, after rent, after utilities, after groceries, after transport, there's almost nothing left. You can make more money than your parents did at your age and still feel poorer, because the cost of participating in the economy they told you to participate in has grown far faster than wages have. The second part is subtler. It's the future collapse mentality. A lot of Gen Z aren't just stressed about money today. They're terrified of money tomorrow because they've watched systems fail. They've watched promises not get kept. They've absorbed enough economic instability in their short lives that somewhere deep down, they don't fully trust that things will be okay. So even when there's money in the account today, the brain says, it might not be there tomorrow. Don't relax, don't feel safe, stay alert. And that's not pessimism. That's a rational response to an environment that actually was unpredictable. But the painful irony is this: that hypervigilance, that constant financial anxiety, doesn't protect you. It just makes sure you can't enjoy the moments when things are actually okay. Because financially, Gen Z isn't comparing themselves to survival anymore. They're comparing themselves to perfection. And perfection, the penthouse, the freedom, the financial safety, always stays just out of reach. Part 5. The real cost isn't money. We've been talking about money this whole time, but here's what I actually want you to hear. The real cost of all of this isn't financial. It's what chronic financial anxiety does to a person over years. It's the burnout that comes not from working too hard, but from never being allowed to feel like you're doing enough. It's the loneliness, because when you're in survival mode, vulnerability feels like a luxury. So you smile and say you're fine, and you don't tell people how scared you are, because you're not even sure they'd understand. It's the delayed adulthood, not because Gen Z is immature or uncommitted, but because the traditional milestones of adulthood have become financially inaccessible for so many. The house, the family, the sense of stability. It keeps getting pushed further down a road that keeps getting longer. It's the inability to feel safe. Not physically unsafe, but that deep, cellular sense of security that comes from knowing things are going to be okay. That feeling, for so many in this generation, just doesn't fully arrive. And that absence leaves a mark. Chronic stress rewires the brain. It shifts your baseline. It makes the world feel more threatening, more uncertain, more exhausting than it actually is. Even in moments when things are objectively fine. An entire generation is walking around carrying that weight. And most of them are carrying it silently. Because what do you even say? I'm okay. I'm just terrified about the future, financially overstimulated, comparing myself to an algorithmically curated feed of manufactured success, and lying awake at night running numbers that never add up the way I need them to. Most people just say, I'm tired. And they are. The scariest part isn't inflation. It's that an entire generation no longer feels secure, even when they're trying their absolute best. Maybe the real crisis isn't that Gen Z can't sleep. Maybe it's that modern life has trained them to stay anxious, to keep checking, keep comparing, keep calculating. Because when survival feels uncertain, rest starts to feel irresponsible. And if you're watching this at 2 a.m., with your phone glowing in a dark room, I want you to know something. The fact that you care this much about your future, about your finances, about getting it right, that's not a flaw. That's you trying. In a system that was not designed to make it easy. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're just exhausted. And that's enough of a reason to finally put the phone down.